Did you know that God keeps a cosmic sperm bank? Well, you're going to learn today. Today on the show, I analyze Dr. Richard Carrier's cosmic sperm bank argument as we continue answering the question, did Paul believe in a historical Jesus? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, leave a review, and if you want to support Help Me Believe, just follow the Patreon link below and become a supporter for as little as $1 a month. My name is Haden Clark, and this is Help Me Believe. In Romans 1:3, Paul says that Jesus was born a descendant of David. Now, obviously, this would imply that Jesus was a biological human being with a biological human ancestry. To almost everyone, this is perfectly obvious. But not everyone. No. Dr. Richard Carrier tells us that the verse is properly translated as born of the sperm of David. He notes that God was involved in the incarnation, according to Paul in Philippians 2, verses 6 through 11, which actually portrays Jesus himself emptying himself of his divine status and himself taking the form of a slave in the likeness of a man. Carrier also notes that in Romans 1:3, just as in Galatians 4:4, that the word translated born is actually the Greek word ginomai, which means to be or to become, and is notably not the word that Paul uses for human birth in Romans 9:11, Galatians 4:23 and 29, and Hebrews 11:23. In these places, Paul uses the Greek root word genao. But so what? Paul uses the same root word genao to denote his fathering of the Corinthian church in 1 Corinthians 4:15. He uses the same root word to describe his relationship with Onesimus in Philemon 1:10. In other words, Carrier is trying to say that Paul uses the word genao to denote human birth, so that's what we would expect him to use in Romans 1:3 and Galatians 4:4, yet he doesn't. He uses the word ginomai. However, as we just saw, Paul uses the word genao in a way that doesn't denote human birth unless you believe Paul was the biological father of the Corinthian church. Such a hard and fast rule for how Paul uses these words does not exist, to the chagrin of Richard Carrier notwithstanding. Paul uses words as he likes, and the context determines the meaning, which we will return to. For now, let's continue Carrier's thinking here. Carrier notes that in 1 Corinthians 15:45, Paul uses the same word translated born in Romans 1:3 to denote how God made Adam. The verse reads, "Thus also it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living soul. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit." Carrier says this is obviously not a reference to being born, but to being constructed directly by God. That's from Carrier on the Historicity of Jesus, page 658 on the Kindle version. Except this isn't a reference to Adam being constructed by God. Although that is true, it is definitely not what Paul is highlighting in 1 Corinthians 15:45. To see this, we can turn to the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible that Paul would have used. We read this in Genesis 2:7, "And God formed the human with earth from the land and blew into his face the breath of life, and the human came into being as a living soul." The Greek word translated formed is not ginomai. Ginomai is used to describe the man's coming into being as a living soul after God breathes the breath of life into him. Ginomai is not used to describe God's forming the man from pre-existing materials. It is used to describe the result of God's breathing into Adam, namely becoming a living soul, not the body. In 1 Corinthians 15:45, Paul is comparing this latter process to Jesus' being a life-giving spirit. Just as God breathed life into Adam, so Jesus breathes life into us. Carrier gets the analogy exactly wrong. Undeterred, Carrier asserts that Paul could have believed that Jesus was constructed by God from these pre-existent materials, thus avoiding human birth altogether. He makes an astonishing statement about 1 Corinthians 15:37. Likewise, in 1 Corinthians 15:37, Paul uses the same word, that is ginomai, of our future resurrection body, which of course is not born from a parent, but directly manufactured by God. In what universe? Paul describes the resurrection as a transformation of our current bodies, which obviously were born from our parents. The Christian belief is that God will resurrect our current bodies and transform them to be immortal, just as he did with Jesus. And our current bodies obviously were born from parents. One failure follows another when you head down the path of conspiracy theories just like this one. Compound interest is a doozy. Undeterred by the obvious once again, Carrier continues. He turns to 2 Samuel 7, verses 12 through 14a, which the Septuagint reads as follows. And it will happen, if your days are fulfilled, and you sleep with your fathers, that I will raise your descendant, which Carrier translate literally as sperm, from you, who will be from your belly, and I will establish his kingdom. He will build a house for me, for my name, and I will establish his throne until forever. I will be like a father to him, and he will be like a son to me. Based on this passage, Carrier boldly proclaims, one could easily conclude that God was saying he extracted semen from David and held it in reserve until the time he would make good this promise. That's from page 658 on the Kindle. Oh yes, this is an easy translation. In fact, the most probable. It's highly unlikely that God just meant he would consider David's descendant Solomon to be his son and that he would continue the Davidic covenant. That's far too improbable. Paul must have thought that God extracted semen from David and held it in reserve. Taking this most obvious interpretation of the prophecy, Carrier boldly states it would not be unimaginable that God could maintain a cosmic sperm bank. Page 658 of the Kindle version. Let me first say props to Carrier if he wrote that with a straight face. Cosmic sperm bank. Is there any precedent from Jewish writings that suggests that such a reading is even possible? Thankfully, Richard Carrier searched high and low, far across the wide reaches of the universe, and found this to support his ridiculous claim. Later Jewish legends imagine demons running their own cosmic sperm bank, even stealing David's sperm for it, to beget his enemies with, so surely God could be imagined doing the same, from the same page of the Kindle version. So, demons have a sperm bank? God's got a sperm bank. Everybody got a sperm bank. It's not that uncommon, you guys, okay? It's not weird. I mean, this interpretation just practically jumps off the pages, right? In fact, Carrier says the notion of a cosmic sperm bank is so easily read out of this scripture. Same page from the Kindle version. Here's a lesson for all you readers out there. Always read the footnotes. To support his claim that there were demons keeping a cosmic sperm bank and that this was a widely held belief, so common that Paul was in all likelihood employing this interpretation, Carrier turns to G.W. Dennis's Encyclopedia of Jewish Magic and Mysticism, where we read in a myth 13 centuries after Paul that a demoness named Egret tricked King David into having sex with her, became pregnant, and gave birth to his enemies. Are you freaking kidding me? 13 centuries later, a story about a demoness having sex with David is supposed to be analogous to God literally extracting sperm from David's belly and storing it until the 1st century CE, and this was supposed to somehow influence Paul. And mythicists really wonder why New Testament scholars don't take Carrier and his ilk seriously. How in the world this past peer review is beyond me. In summary, there is no precedent for God forming Jesus of pre-existent material, especially not via a cosmic sperm bank. And the most plausible reading of Romans 1:3 is that Paul believed Jesus to be a biological ancestor of King David. For a detailed interpretation of Romans 1:3 that doesn't rely on wild conspiracy theory, stick around and I'll make a video on it. Or you can just check out my debate with Godless Engineer, a popular Jesus mythicist, on the topic, which you can find in the playlist labeled Debates. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, leave a review, and if you want to support our mission of spreading and defending the truth of Christianity, just follow the Patreon link below and become a supporter for as little as $1 a month. My name is Haden Clark, and this is Help Me Believe.